What if behind America's most lighthearted comedy was a tale darker than anyone dared to imagine? At 75, Joyce DeWitt isn't holding back anymore. The truth about Three's Company, the bubbly sitcom that once made millions laugh, is finally spilling out. And it's nothing like the smiles we saw on screen. DeWitt is revealing how the very show that made her a household name also tried to erase her from Hollywood altogether. In a time when pay disparity between genders was just swept under the rug, she watched as her male co-star earned 5 times her salary. And when Suzanne Summers stood up to demand equal treatment, the backlash wasn't just swift. It was cruel. Filmed alone, alienated, and eventually blacklisted, she became a silent warning to other women in the industry. But now, decades later, those silent wounds are echoing louder than ever. It's easy to forget that Three's Company almost never happened. In early 1976, Fred Silverman had just taken over as programming head at ABC. He needed a game changer, something bold enough to rattle the network giants. That spark came from across the pond. Man About the House, a British sitcom about a man living with 2 women. American networks had turned it down, calling it too risque. But Silverman saw opportunity in its controversy. He reached out to producers Don Taffner and Ted Bergman and handed them a challenge: make it work for American audiences. But what started as a risky bet quickly turned into a behind-the-scenes battlefield of egos, betrayals, and power plays. The first adaptation effort was a miss. Broadway writer Peter Stone tried to glam it up, setting the show in New York, giving the characters sleek careers, a chef, a fashion model, and a secretary. It didn't click. It was too shiny, too polished, too fake. The version was scrapped before cameras ever rolled. It was a wake-up call that American audiences wanted relatability, not perfection. Then came Larry Gelbart, reluctantly. Known for creating MASH, he thought the idea was fluff, but he gave it a shot with his son-in-law Gary Markowitz. Together, they reimagined the setup in a gritty North Hollywood apartment complex, and even came up with the name Three's Company. The concept had finally found its soul, but even then, the cast wasn't set. The role of Chrissy Snow was still a mystery, until the night Fred Silverman stayed late flipping through tapes. He paused. There she was, Suzanne Summers, electric, unfiltered, unforgettable. She wasn't even in the running anymore, but he made the call. The next morning, she walked onto set. That decision would define the series. And then came the dilemma of John Ritter. Producers hesitated. Could his exaggerated physical comedy strike the right tone? His character, Jack Tripper, had to pretend to be gay to live with 2 women, and the execs feared audiences might take it the wrong way. There were talks of replacing him. But Silverman stepped in again. Ritter stays. That move would make history. Ritter's timing, charm, and gymnastic-level pratfalls turned Jack into a pop culture icon. His performance earned him an Emmy, a Golden Globe, and the hearts of millions. But here's where the story begins to crack. Joyce DeWitt, cast as Janet, wasn't just another sitcom sidekick. Just 6 episodes in, she refused to say a line that insulted another woman's character. It didn't sit right with her, and she made it known. Producers pushed. Ritter offered to take the line for her. She didn't flinch. "Bring a gun," she said. "I still won't say it." That kind of integrity came at a cost. When ABC later tried to back out of a promised raise, DeWitt bypassed producers and confronted the network head herself. Her message? This isn't about money, it's about principle. She got her raise and a reputation for backbone. Hollywood rarely rewards resistance, but occasionally it folds under persistence. When they wanted Audrey Lindley for the role of Mrs. Roper, she was already committed to a stage production. Most studios would have moved on. ABC bought out the entire theater for $8,000 just so she could film the pilot. That chemistry between Lindley and Norman Fell would later spark their own spin-off, The Ropers. And let's not forget how close the show came to looking very different. Billy Crystal, Michael Lembeck, and Barry Van Dyke were all serious contenders for Jack Tripper. Crystal didn't get the part, but soon found success elsewhere on soap. Still, it's impossible to imagine anyone else falling over couches and flashing grins the way Ritter did. What makes all of this even more remarkable is how Three's Company started as a short-term experiment, a 6-episode spring run. No one expected it to last. But when the pilot aired on March 15, 1977, it climbed to number 28 that week. By its 6th episode, it was a hit, drawing a massive audience. ABC moved it to a prime Tuesday night slot following Happy Days, and the ratings exploded. For the 1977-78 season, it ranked 3rd nationally. The next year, number 2, with a staggering 30.3 rating. But success didn't come with peace. Behind the scenes, tension brewed. Suzanne Summers' demand for equal pay became a national conversation. She wasn't just an actress, she was a brand. Summers had begun investing in beauty products, fitness lines, and publishing ventures. Her Thigh Master empire alone would eventually earn her over $100 million. She wore Cartier watches and was often seen driving her Bentley through Malibu, living in a home valued at over $12 million with sweeping ocean views. Her financial acumen was sharp. Diversified portfolios, real estate in California and Palm Springs, and even a personal insurance policy that covered both her health and her brand. A rare move for the time. Her rise showed what it meant to transform celebrity into legacy. But it came at a cost. When ABC refused to meet her salary demands, despite the show's success, she was iced out. Not just written off the show, but nearly erased from industry memory. She had leveraged her fame for financial independence, but Hollywood pushed back hard. There's a lesson buried beneath the sitcom laughter and glossy magazine covers. Fame is fleeting. Wealth, if managed smartly, can last longer. Summers' strategy: diversify early, invest in your name, and always protect your brand, turned her into a case study in celebrity entrepreneurship. She didn't just star on screen. She owned her future off it. For anyone watching from the outside, it's a masterclass in resilience. In the glimmer of television history, Three's Company wasn't supposed to be a cultural lightning rod. But by the time its 2nd season rolled around, it wasn't just a hit. It was a phenomenon. And with success came scrutiny. While fans laughed at the trio's antics in their Santa Monica apartment, powerful groups were sharpening their claws. Conservative watchdogs condemned the show's bold humor. The PTA gave it dismal marks, and the National Federation for Decency took it a step further, launching a pressure campaign that led some advertisers to flee. Yet, in a twist of irony, controversy only fueled the show's fire. Curious viewers tuned in by the millions, proving once again that the more people try to silence a voice, the louder it echoes. And that echo shook the sitcom world forever. But even as Three's Company shaped the idea of a new kind of family, one rooted not in blood but in friendship, it masked an uneasy truth behind the laughter. The cast, adored and idolized, were battling shadows of their own. And at the center of the storm was Suzanne Summers, whose bold moves would ignite a wildfire that changed everything. Instead of fair negotiation, ABC slammed the door shut. "Who do you think you are?" they reportedly sneered. "Ritter is the star." They tossed her a small raise, just $5,000 more per episode, as if that would silence her. She stood firm, and the network retaliated. Not only did they refuse her request, they launched a silent war against her. Behind closed doors, executives were still reeling from an earlier incident. Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams of Laverne and Shirley had won a big raise after pushing back. ABC didn't want a repeat. According to insiders, they chose Summers as their scapegoat. someone to make an example of. She wasn't in the show's title after all. They believed Chrissy Snow could be replaced without consequence. But their response was chilling. Rather than a clean exit, they humiliated her. She was reduced to a few seconds on screen per episode, filmed in isolation, forbidden from interacting with her co-stars. Security escorted her like she was a threat. And the cast? They were told she was greedy, trying to sabotage the show. Most believed it. The camaraderie vanished overnight. Suzanne was left in the cold. Her career froze. Once America's sweetheart, now she couldn't even land an interview. "I was fired from the #1 show in America at the peak of my success," she later said, "and I was blacklisted." For years, Hollywood shut its doors, all because she dared to ask for fairness. Yet despite being pushed to the fringes, Summers didn't stay down. She rebuilt her empire piece by piece. Her later ventures in health, wellness, and fitness made her millions. As of the mid-2020s, her net worth was estimated at $100 million. A phoenix from the ashes, she turned personal trauma into financial triumph. Her real estate holdings alone stretched from a sprawling Palm Springs compound, once worth over $8 million before it was tragically destroyed, to a Malibu getaway designed with eco-luxury in mind. She was a collector of lavish comfort. Ferraris, Bentleys, and vintage Cadillacs often spotted in her driveways. Her wrist sparkled with Cartier and Hublot watches. Her lifestyle proved that when the industry shuts one door, determination opens 10 more. But her absence left a void. ABC scrambled to fill it, introducing Jenna Lee Harrison as Chrissy's cousin, Cindy. She was bubbly, blonde, and eager, but audiences weren't buying it. The chemistry had shifted. It felt artificial. Ratings dipped. And just like that, the heart of Three's Company began to beat a little less brightly. Even stranger was the chaos behind the show's theme music. Originally, the producers wanted the three leads to sing it. It was a disaster. Joe Raposo, the theme's composer, knew they couldn't carry a tune. Enter Ray Charles. No, not the soul legend, but another Ray Charles with TV chops. He came in to coach them. After an hour, the producers asked, "Well?" His response was diplomatic. "I'm not sure." They laughed, replied, "We are," and gave the job to him instead. The final recording featured Charles and Julia Rinker Miller, backed by session greats like Hal Blaine and Tommy Tedesco. It became one of TV's most iconic opening tunes, a sonic symbol of laughter masking turmoil. Yet even photo shoots weren't safe from controversy. When Newsweek featured the cast in 1978, the actors expected a celebration of comedy. What they got instead was a provocative cover that sexualized them without consent. Joyce DeWitt and John Ritter were stunned. Suzanne claimed she didn't know it would be so suggestive. The cast felt betrayed, and the atmosphere on set soured. What had once been fun was now distorted by image manipulation and exploitation. And the control behind the scenes? It was suffocating. When Richard Klein, who played Larry, tried to discuss his character's development during rehearsal, producers cut him from 4 episodes. That's how fragile the balance was. One step out of line, and you were erased. As the golden days of Three's Company faded, what remained was a harsh reminder of Hollywood's darker truths. Beneath the glitter and laughter were power plays, betrayals, and a silent war on those who dared to speak up. The world never saw it coming, the slow unraveling of one of television's most iconic sitcoms. What started as a ratings juggernaut, packed with charm, laughter, and unforgettable characters, quietly spiraled into a behind-the-scenes storm. When Cindy joined the cast, producers hoped she'd recapture the magic lost with Chrissy's departure. But magic can't be replicated, and Cindy, despite her effort, struggled to find her place. The scripts offered her little substance, and her presence faded like a shadow on a sunny set. Ratings followed suit. Once a top 10 staple, the show plunged to 20th. The once vibrant energy dimmed, replaced by uncertainty. Into that haze walked a young Heather Lear, her nervous audition on Valentine's Day 1982, ending in a tissue mishap that could have humiliated her forever. But her resilience turned the moment into a running joke in her later career. She didn't land the role, but she gained something more valuable: industry attention. Soon, she'd dominate primetime with Dynasty and Melrose Place, proving that even small embarrassments can be stepping stones to stardom. Eventually, Priscilla Barnes was brought on as Terry Alden. Smart, poised, but subjected to brutal control. Everything from weekly weigh-ins to wardrobe mandates. Barnes later described her years on the show as a kind of personal captivity, masked behind forced smiles. Though the glamour seemed effortless on screen, off-camera it was relentless pressure and constant scrutiny. She stayed until the finale in 1984, but the cost was deep. Her silence spoke volumes. When the cameras stopped rolling, the joy often stopped too. And yet, someone tried to keep that joy alive: Don Knotts. His role as Mr. Furley became the show's comedic lifeline after Chrissy's departure. With John Ritter now carrying a heavier comedic load, the writers leaned on Knotts' eccentric energy. Episodes started orbiting around his exaggerated reactions, but that shift came at a price. The warmth and heart of the earlier seasons began slipping away. Joyce DeWitt, who played Janet, felt the change deeply. She proposed new directions for her character, perhaps a flower shop or an empowered career path, but the producers clung to tired formulas. By the final season, Janet was married off in a conclusion DeWitt said clashed with everything the character once stood for. Meanwhile, Norman Fell, the actor behind the beloved Mr. Roper, lived through his own betrayal. Initially hesitant to leave Three's company, he only agreed to do the spin-off The Ropers after producers promised, contractually, that he could return if the new show flopped. After a strong debut, the series was moved to Saturday nights, a known ratings trap. It crashed. Just weeks after the clause expired, ABC canceled it. Norman was stunned. He believed the timing wasn't just unfortunate, it was strategic. When he returned to ask for his old job back, the answer was no. Don Knotts was now the permanent landlord, and 2 was cheaper than 3. Then came an unexpected twist. Suzanne Summers, fired years earlier for demanding equal pay, tried to return. Her husband pitched her as Jack's wife in Three's a Crowd. It was bold. She had been blacklisted and legally threatened, but this was a chance at redemption. Yet again, the door slammed shut. Producers had already chosen Mary Caderet for the role. Suzanne's final chance with the franchise was gone, her past battles still casting long shadows. Back on set, Three's a Crowd never found its rhythm. The chemistry was off, the audience wasn't buying Jack as a domesticated man, and competing against the A-Team only made matters worse. Ritter eventually said no to a second season, putting a definitive end to the franchise. What had once been a cultural phenomenon was now a footnote in network scheduling. But the most heart-wrenching chapter came in 2003. Just a month before John Ritter's sudden passing, he reached out to Suzanne. 2 decades of silence ended with a simple, haunting phrase. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones the cameras never captured. Would you believe that one tissue on a casting floor, one final phone call, and one canceled contract would become the heart of a saga more gripping than any scripted scene? In Hollywood, the real drama isn't always on screen. It's in the quiet moments between the lines,